A show like this seems to me so crucial, especially in this time period.
I think it's a very, very authentic rendition of the reality I, among others, grew up with.
I think on both sides it's very hard for people to open their hearts nowadays. And just to hear these stories, people will have no choice but to think twice.
Jumana and I met on the green grass of student housing at a family potluck in Davis, California. She was holding her baby boy and I was holding mine. She had the kind of dark beauty that I recognized immediately from home, and something about her eyes that reminded me of a shy gazelle. I walked up to her. What's his name? Tamer. And yours? Itai. Where are you from? Jerusalem. And Ramallah, actually. Oh. I'm from Jerusalem, too. Her American husband stepped right in. My wife is a Palestinian, you know. I knew. I didn't know if she'd want to talk to me. She didn't know if I'd want to talk to her. I grew up in Jerusalem, a divided city where the buildings are made of chiseled stone, Even Yerushalmi, Jerusalem stone, pink, white, gray, many shades of gray. When I was a little girl, before 1967, there were always places at the edge of the city you couldn't go to. It was the border. Once my mother took me to such a place. There were rusty orange signs, caution, mines, no man's land, no passing beyond this point.
I was caught at the very beginning by the very detailed story about the way Jerusalem looked before '67, because it's exactly what I remember, almost stone by stone, rock by rock.
This is really from the heart. This is really kind of getting you to understand from the inside out.
And I think this was absolutely fantastic because it really does give everyone an insight into the fears and the emotions that both people have that really are driving this conflict.
Oh, it was extremely moving and very thought-provoking, and also very trying in the sense that reminds you of how much pain and, well, there's a Yiddish word, sorrows, that the conflict represents.
And from the other side of the alley wall, we heard, Hunak, here. Dir balak, be careful. Allahu Akbar. And we heard the sound of stone pinging on metal. And my little sister, she started pulling my skirt so hard. I want to go home. I want to go home to Mama. And Nadia looked at me, and I looked at Nadia. It was up to us now. We were the oldest. We were in 5th grade. I took my little sister, and I started leading the way. I knew all we have to do is get to the souk. From there, it's not very far, and it's crowded. There's a lot of people. It's safer. So we started to run very, very fast, and we were just coming down the last alley, down the steps, and around the curve, and we came to the bottom. It was the souk. But it was quiet like a grave. All the shutters were closed. No dresses, no tourists. And I remember they say there's this quiet after they throw the stones and before they start shooting. And my little sister, she was pulling my skirt and she was crying. I want to go home. I want to go to Mama. Take me to Mama now. And Nadia, she was all white. We have to hide. We have to hide. They're going to come. They're going to shoot us. We have to hide. And I knew we have to hide, but I didn't know where to go. My legs, they were like stones.
To start with, Noah just totally blows you away. The 4 voices that she portrays here are just so distinct and come alive.
Extremely authentic and poignant. The stories are very, very powerful.
Totally, and I felt the entire audience just collectively hinging on every word, listening to what was going to happen, and not feeling as if they're listening to a story, feeling like they're with somebody who's telling them their own story.
All the kids were still in school. The adults that were not at work or in the army were huddled around a little transistor radio, and then the door banged shut and the wailing siren stopped, and then there came a sound I couldn't name. I never heard it in my life. It was like an endless whistle, and then an explosion like 1,000 thunders. But then there was another one, and another one, and another one, and the building was shaking. The ceiling felt like it was going to fall on my head, and I wanted to scream, "Where's my mommy? Why isn't she coming to take me from this place?" But no sound came out. And then it stopped. Another siren wailed. The kids came from school. My father came with my brother, and then the door banged shut. And the bombs started falling again. But my mother, my little sister, my father wasn't answering my questions. His eyes were fixed on the door, and then I don't know how he heard anything in all that noise. He ran to it and opened it, and there was my mother with my 3-year-old sister in her arms, and she thrust a bag into his hands. I got flour.
I love the part how she kept talking about all this person needed was the flour and the water and the oil, and the person on the other side said the same thing. It just sort of brought tears to my heart, you know, that everybody said the same thing, and they were all survivors.
It was very powerful to me to hear about how both the mothers relied very much on flour and water and oil to prevent from getting hungry. These were the details that just remind all of us that we're all human.
Now, I had 3 little ones of my own. Jumana, she was 3. Wael, he was 2. He was still in diapers. And Sami, he was just 6 months old. I could not imagine being in a war. But when I went downstairs, someone was running up the street, yelling. They said on the radio, "The war has started. The war has started." And I had only one thought: flour. I left the children sleeping with the door open, and I started to run to the store. I said 2 kilo flour, and there were gunshots. I fell to the ground. Ya Rab, my children, I must get back to my children. And Haj Mahmoud, the owner, he brought me up. He said, "Don't be afraid. It's just one crazy one. Wahad majnoon, look." A young man was running up the street, shooting in the air. "Yalla ya Jamal, let's go fight. Let's go free Palestine." But you know, I did not care who it was. I could not wait for him to pour the flour for me. I had to get back to my children. I ran back like a majnoona, like a crazy woman. I was so terrified I will be separated from my children. You know, I grew up with all the stories from 48, like that woman in Haifa. How she left her baby just for a minute to see if her husband is coming home. And the crowds, they were running away from the Jews. They swept her away, and she was separated. She could never go back to her baby. I swore I will not leave my children until Khalil comes back. But there was no bus that day. Khalil did not return.
I think it's not only a good idea, it's an authentic idea, because both Palestinians or Arabs and Jews are storytellers, as opposed to many other cultures that don't have storytelling. We tell stories all the time. That's the way we do life.
So I think it's a fantastic performance. It's also wonderfully entertaining.
And I asked Jumana, "Do you think if you and I had lost our boys, Itai, Tamer, would we still be able to sit here and talk like this?" And she said, "I don't know. I cannot imagine such pain." And so I decided to tell her about the picture. The picture of the young man with a smooth, serious face. He wears the hat of a religious man. The picture hangs above the piano in my grandmother's room. She never talks about him, but she always sighs and wipes the tears every time she looks at it. The same picture hangs in my parents' bedroom. My mother likes to open photo albums, black pages with little heart-shaped corners holding faded gray photos. There's not many pictures of the young man, but she always talks about Yaakov. She always talks about Yaakov. Nobody had a brother like mine. Nobody had a brother like mine. He always took care of me. When our father left, he was like the father for me. When we were hungry, and that was most of the time, he would make jokes, so we would laugh and forget that we are hungry. And if ever I was sad, he would say, "Tzipili, don't be sad. Look how lucky we are. We are all so rich. We are studying, all of us. That was the most important thing for him. He was a Ilui, a great scholar in the Torah, but he wanted more. He wanted to learn law and history. So he left the yeshiva and he went to Jerusalem, to the university. And you know, when he was at the university, without telling anyone in the family because he was so modest, he was secretly ordained as a rabbi. Imagine my brother. He was a rabbi when he was 19 years old. On top of that, he was a hero, a real hero. He fought in Lehi, the fighters for the freedom of Israel. He fought the British so that we would have our own home, so that what happened to our mother's family in Europe, what the Nazis did, will never happen again. He would always say to me, Tzipile, you will see, we will have our own home. Never again will we be slaughtered. Never, ever again.
This is a very difficult story to tell, and yet there's humor in it, and the audience was laughing with her, and that helps you relax and helps you hear the hard parts.
Playing the different characters, you forgot that this was one person playing all these different people, so it was very effective in that sense.
Most of us who are involved are very familiar, including the kids, for example, are very familiar with the history and know the emotions on their side very well. They experience that and have never, ever experienced or witnessed the emotions that drive the other side. And this is, I can't think of another venue that would allow them to do that other than Noah's performance.
And the last 3 years have been particularly hard. But we still talk on the phone. Noah? No, I just heard there was another one in Jerusalem. Is your sister all right? Jumana? Jumana, I heard they're demolishing houses in Bet Hanina. Are your parents all right? Noah? No, I just heard about that bomb in Netanya. I don't know how to describe to you my outrage, my pain about all this. Jumana? I just heard there are tanks in Ramallah. Is your brother all right? Noah? My cousin was shot. He was shot at the checkpoint. He was just trying to get to work, and now he's in the hospital in intensive care, and nobody in the family can go to visit him. Jumana? Jumana? That last one, that last bus that blew up, it was 2 streets away from my sister. She could see everything. She could smell everything. Noah, I just talked to my father. He said that they could see from their house that wall. It's in the middle of the neighborhood. It's cutting them from everything. They can see it. Jumana and I stand on an island in the middle of a raging sea. All around us, the waves crash violently, splashing us until we're soaking wet. But somehow we hold on. We talk above the roaring storm. We hold on to our compassion. We bake a cake with pink and white frosting and eat together under the tree. We hold on to our little peace. We have no choice.
I know at the end of the performance, I suddenly said, well, it couldn't have been an hour and 10 minutes. It must be an intermission that they didn't announce.
It was a very brave thing for her to do, very brave performance, very positive.
It doesn't feel like acting, it feels just like this is her or this is her friend when she's talking in that voice.
She's obviously a wonderful storyteller, so it's also a pleasure to listen to me. It's a wonderfully entertaining hour. And she's obviously a very good actress. I'd love to see her on something else now.